Well, tonight, cybersecurity. And unfortunately, 2021 was a banner year for ransomware gangs who extorted millions upon millions of dollars from American companies. And we saw alarming cyber attacks launched by shadowy, state-sponsored hackers linked to Russia and China. CNBC's senior Washington correspondent Eamon Javers has been covering the growing war on cybercrime all year. So, Eamon, what can we expect to see next?
Well, Contessa, this was the year that cybercrime went big time. Before this year, most people didn't really worry about criminal cyber attacks, and they certainly didn't think about nation-state intelligence services targeting them and the infrastructure they depend on.
Security experts are calling a cyber attack on the nation's largest fuel pipeline the worst yet.
Right now, a Russian-based hacking group dubbed Nobilium, the group responsible for last week's SolarWinds attack, is engaging in another major hack.
Tonight, another stunning cyber attack, what appear to be Russian criminals again targeting a major American company.
The headlines were relentless in 2021, and now the U.S. government's top cyber defender is warning the threat isn't going away in 2022.
I see a lot of dynamism and complexity and a lot of danger. This is a persistent condition, Eamon. This is not something we are going to fix. So we need to focus on the things that we need to do to protect ourselves. Cybersecurity is not really a tech issue. Cybersecurity is about people and human behavior.
That may not seem reassuring, but Jen Easterly says there are some things companies and people can do to protect themselves. Things as basic as making sure multi-factor authentication is in place. She says more tips are available at stopransomware.gov. The new year is likely to be dominated by fallout from the newly discovered software vulnerability known as Log4j, a flaw that has left millions of devices exposed to attackers. But the bigger headache for defenders is simply that the hackers have earned so much money this year, they're able to buy more robust systems and hire much better programmers, all of which is going to make them harder to eradicate in the future.
They're becoming more brazen because they know they have increasingly resilient systems, better engineered and constructed systems for conducting cybercrime, and so they are feeling more confident in their ability to conduct this crime and get away with it.
So after this tough year on the cybersecurity front, the experts, they just don't seem very optimistic about the new year. It sounds like we're looking at a 2022 with more hacks, more lost money, and potentially more real-world victims.
And you know, I cover insurance, and the big insurers are all ringing alarm bells about this risk as well. Eamon, thank you for bringing our attention to it. David Kennedy joins me now, former hacker for the NSA and the Marine Corps, and now the CEO of TrustedSec, which advises large companies and governments. David, I feel actual fear when you hear that quote from the director in Eamon's story saying, this is not something we're going to fix. So what do we do?
Yeah, Contessa, this is a problem that impacts everybody, whether it's your home networks at home you're trying to protect, whether it's small to medium-sized businesses, whether it's a medical institution or facility or hospital, cyber impacts everybody. And it's one of those things where as mentioned earlier, the ransomware groups are making a ton of money right now off of going after organizations, nation states that are hostile to the United States and its allies like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran are continuously enhancing their capabilities to go after us and weaponize us. Cyber warfare is a real thing, and it's something that's definitely concerning for all of us in the security industry, but also, you hear at the board level and everywhere else. It's something that we really need to take as serious as possible. And most organizations and businesses, as Jen had mentioned, look at this as a technological problem when it's really how you conduct your business and how to do it in a safe manner when you're incorporating technology.
Let me ask you, we sort of have this stand as a nation that we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't negotiate with kidnappers. Should we take a different approach with those behind ransomware? I mean, should we stop paying off those who hack into our systems?
It's a tough call because what would happen if that were to occur is that the ransomware groups would just go, bonkers and start hacking into companies and shutting them down without the ability to actually recover. And I don't know if the private sector would tolerate something like that. I know it's something that's been looked at. You look at, potentially being able to stop funds and transfer funds to these groups and categorizing them as more terrorist organizations. I think the biggest thing that we could do is start to hold these countries accountable that house these ransomware groups. Most specifically, the largest one is Russia. We're still being pretty light on our tonality towards Russia, and understandably so. But from a political perspective, I think going after countries that house these types of groups, whether it's with sanctions or other ways to, dissuade these groups from operating in these countries, I think would have a pretty big impact versus trying to shut down the payments. Although if we did payments, it would probably be a pretty bad season for a while, but then eventually these groups would die out because they're not getting money.
And do you think that the U.S. government is doing enough?
Unfortunately, I think from a defensive perspective, they're investing a lot. If you look at what's going on with the Critical Infrastructure Security Agency and trying to protect our critical infrastructure, like our natural gas, issues that we had with Colonial Pipeline and JBS, they're doing a lot trying to secure our critical infrastructure. The problem is that defense is really on our own when it comes to a business perspective. The government isn't going to help there. I don't think the government is being proactive in actually stopping these types of attacks and going after countries that are targeting us. You look at what happened with SolarWinds, where they hacked into hundreds or thousands of different corporations, including some of the largest technological backbones like Microsoft, Cisco, Intel, VMware. There really was no reaction back to them. Same thing for China with Hafnium, where they hacked into a whole bunch of companies. And we have to retaliate.
And we all have a part to play in cybersecurity as well. There's even down to the individual status. David, thank you so much for that.